First impressions are important. Meeting new people, job interviews, TV pilots. First impressions let people form an idea of how a particular thing is going to be moving forward. Video games are no exception. A good first level can make or break the experience for some right off the bat. What makes a good first level? Well, a lot of things. Perhaps most importantly, it should represent what the rest of the game will be like. If you started off a Final Fantasy game, and then once you hit an enemy, it loads into a Mario Party minigame, but this only happened once, and the rest of the game was just a normal Final Fantasy game, it wouldn't really be an accurate representation of how the rest of the game is going to play out. So, a good first level should introduce you to the basic mechanics of a game. Super Mario Bros. Has possibly the most famous first level of all time. The music, the graphics, the enemies, the layout are iconic. The opening of Super Mario Bros. Teaches you all the basics you need to know. You play as this little mustache man, you go right to progress and hold B to run. Okay, so mushroom dudes are bad. The A button makes you jump, red mushrooms get you big.
I don't touch the stuff, not gonna touch the stuff, never touch the stuff. That was a lie.
And fire flowers let you shoot fireballs. But it also teaches you that you can go down certain warp pipes, and there are hidden come on man, hidden blocks. Koopas go into shells, pits are bad, and flagpoles at the end of the level. This is a perfect bare bones first level. A basic, friendly environment that isn't too difficult and teaches you all the basics but doesn't give away all the game has to offer straight away. A first level is also a good time to set up the story and characters of a game. Lets the player know who they are, what their position in the story is, as well as introducing any supporting cast, their personalities and their position in the story. And a good example is Modern Warfare. No, not that one, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. You play as Soap McTavish, the new addition to the SAS, and while doing the tutorial mission you meet some of your new crewmates such as Gaz. The game incorporates the gameplay mechanics and tutorials as a part of the game's story, as you're going through a training mission both yourself as a player and the character of Soap. After basic training you meet your captain, I actually just said Fisher Price, John Price, better known as Captain Price.
What the hell kind of name is Soap, eh? How'd a muppet like you pass selection?
From the moment you meet him, you can tell he's got some experience under his belt, and that, as of right now, to him, you're nothing special. So before you even embark on your first mission, you know you have to earn the respect of this guy. The opening tutorial also teaches you how to play the game, which brings me to the best part of this opening tutorial, the training simulation. Just before this, you learn how to shoot from a stable position. Now you're going to put that to the test as you move through a simulation of the upcoming mission. And now I'm going to talk about the first actual mission of the game real quick, because what I just talked about was more of a tutorial area rather than an actual mission. After Price tosses a cigar into the ocean in hopes of killing a small family of fish, you drop onto a big wet boat. And from the first few minutes, you understand how the rest of this game is going to work. Start mission, get told what room to go to that room, shoot guys in that room, go to next room, shoot guys in that room, so on and so forth for about the next decade or so until they slightly change it. You locate, I don't know, some weapon of mass destruction or whatever, typical COD stuff, until the ship becomes under attack and begins to flood. At one point you get knocked out. One of your fellow soldiers seems to just leave you behind, but Captain Price won't leave any man behind, making sure you get up on your feet and are ready to go, further building his character.
On your feet, soldier! We are leaving!
You then race against the crashing water to escape with the rest of your team. The first level should encapsulate what the majority of the game will be like, not just in gameplay, but the theme. Is the game funny, scary, depressing? The first level should give you a general idea of the game's vibe. A perfect example of this is the opening to Sonic Adventure 2. The 2001 sequel has aged like a fine, full, fat milk, but the opening level is still one of the greatest of all time. The opening cutscene sparks intrigue. Why is Sonic in police custody? Why is he breaking out? Why is the voice acting so terrible?
Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies.
When that guy says,
He's taking out everyone aboard.
what does that mean? Did he assault those people? Did he kill them? As Sonic jumps out of the helicopter, he uses one of the blades to skate down the steep city streets, taking out any family in a sedan that he lays his eyes on, while Escape from the City blares through the speakers. So not only does the game introduce you to its ballistic vibe, but also its mechanics. It lets you know that Sonic controls like a crackhead, these things are bouncy, these robots are not your friend, these ones are your friend, and that hooks lift you up. Speaking of Omo Chow, he can burn in hell. Jokes aside, apart from his annoying voice,
Hi, I'm Omo Chow.
Let me tell you
Let me
about
tell
Sonny
you
and
about
Shadow
Eddie.
Skin.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth.
Omo Chow tutorials aren't too bad. Not only are they optional, but you can still control Sonic and progress through the mission while he gives you helpful tips. Oh, yeah, speaking of the ballistic tone of this game, the level ends with you running away from a massive truck that has the word gun written on it, plowing through several innocent civilians as you run towards the camera. Anyway, this mission is very cool, let's move on. But if there's one thing a first level really shouldn't do, it's put all of its eggs in one basket. What I mean by this is that a first level should give you a good idea, a taste of what the game will be like without giving away all it has to offer. If a game uses up all of its ideas in the first level, it's not unlikely that those ideas may become a little stale. Again, a good example is something like Mario, where in Mario games the first level is kinda standard and usually introduces the player to one new power-up, but throughout the game you use more different power-ups in different types of stage environments. So all the gameplay elements aren't given away in the first, 5 minutes. But, as always, there are exceptions. Metroid Prime has to have one of the sickest opening stages of all time. Released in 2002 on the GameCube, Metroid Prime was the first first-person shooter entry in the series. It teaches you the basic controls and how to use Samus's abilities, such as the Morph Ball, Grapple Hook, Charge Shot, and Rocket Launcher. But isn't this a case of the game giving away all of its features straight away? Well, you're just going to have to wait and see, you cheeky little freak. As you make your way through this seemingly abandoned facility, you encounter dead alien bodies, and some alive ones, seemingly defending the area, or at least something in it. After adventuring deep enough into the destroyed facility, you then reach the aggressive drunk cousin of the Slurm Worm from Futurama, aka the Parasite Queen. After defeating her, a self-destruct sequence begins and you have about 7 minutes to escape. You use all the abilities you've learned in order to make it out on time. Along the way, you realize that by destroying this place, you may have just been responsible for releasing fan-favorite villain Ridley. Just before you escape, Samus damages her suit, resulting in all the abilities you just had now being unavailable. What makes this such a great opening level isn't just the storytelling or the amazing music. The countdown is such a unique feature of the level, and by the time you defeat the Parasite Queen, you become so familiar with your suit and its abilities that you may even rely on them. So taking them away makes you feel weak and vulnerable and gives you something to work towards for the rest of the game. You want to gain back your abilities in addition to continuing the story. An interesting debate is the difficulty a first level should have. Should it be just as hard as the majority of the game, or should it gradually ramp up the game's difficulty? That's an important choice for developers to make, as a very hard first level may turn people off the game.
What? You didn't even let me, oh my god!
But if the point of the game is to provide an extreme challenge, then it may be better to introduce that right away. This eliminates time that might be wasted trying to gradually increase the difficulty until you build up to what the game is actually going to be like. Think something like Bloodborne, or a lot of the other From Software games. Now these games are known for their difficulty. Whilst many of the enemies aren't actually too bad and they look a lot scarier than they really are, the opening area of this game is still pretty tough. And obviously, the level of difficulty increases as you progress through the game. But some may argue that starting the game out with such a high difficulty negatively affects new players who aren't familiar with From Software and Souls-type games. On the other hand, it lets the player know exactly what they're in for, a well-crafted and deliberately difficult experience. It teaches you straight away that this game isn't going to hold your hand. But for games where difficulty wasn't a main factor or deliberate choice, a very difficult first level can be infuriating. Think Contra or Super Star Wars. The opening levels to these games are seriously hard, harder than some of the later levels. So someone might turn away and think, well, this is only the opening level, the game's only going to get more difficult from here, and I don't really want that kind of an experience. So it's a double-edged sword. But what's an example of a bad first level? Well, it could be a level that doesn't accurately represent the rest of the game, or maybe is insanely difficult for seemingly no reason. For my money, I'd have to say The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess has one of the worst opening areas. For those who've played a Zelda game before, you know the majority of them don't operate on a level-by-level basis. But Twilight Princess's opening area is so horrifically boring, I just had to talk about it. It's somewhat similar to Ocarina of Time, but doubles it in length and halves it in its character and charm. You basically just meander through this town called Ordona Province. You learn some important stuff like how to stop these cattle things, which appears later in the game, but not that often, and how to shoot your slingshot, but it's far too long and seriously slow, and is probably the worst opening to any of the Zelda games, at least that I've ever played. Unskippable cutscenes, a lot of text boxes, and fetch quests. Furthermore, there's no real sense of adventure or puzzle solving, because as Link, you just go to places that the character is already familiar with, which is missing what Zelda's all about: action, adventure, and puzzle solving. Now, there is possibly nothing worse than when you start a new game and the opening tutorial area forces you to stop playing the game and read some text, or watch a cutscene, or follow a guy at a pace that's even too slow for a 40-year-old Dirk Nowitzki. Okami is a cult classic PS2 game that's been re-released quite a few times. Beautiful art style and unique gameplay, but its opening is excruciatingly slow. I got two words for you: unskippable cutscenes. While teaching you the mechanics of the game, it often brings things to a screeching halt in order to show you a cutscene or build the lore of the game. In fact, the opening unskippable cutscene for this game that doesn't have voice acting takes up nearly 17 minutes. And then you get about 5 seconds of being able to run around before you're shoved into another cutscene. And throughout the tutorial area, you are repeatedly interrupted with text boxes that grind the game to a screeching halt. A much better example of integrating tutorials into an opening level is Spider-Man PS4. You get a quick cutscene at the start of the game, which can be skipped if you want to do that, before immediately transitioning you into gameplay. And not just any gameplay, but what Spider-Man is known for best. No, not being sticky, but good guess. Swinging. There are a few pop-ups that last maybe a second or two that tell you how to swing, but once you're done with that, it's pretty much smooth sailing. But as these things are popping up, you're progressing through a core part of the story. It doesn't feel like you're being held back in a tutorial area before you're allowed to play the game. It's teaching you as you play. Whilst the first level of the game doesn't determine its entire quality, which is certainly the truth for something like Okami or Twilight Princess, it can determine whether a person continues to play the game. So for a lot, it plays a vital role in the overall enjoyment of said game. Like, if someone tells you, this game is really awesome, but the opening is super boring and you have to play for like 1 to 2 hours before it really gets good, you might be less inclined to try it out. But that'll wrap it up. I'm sure I've missed some iconic first levels, so if you've got any favorites, put them down in the comments below. Alright, thanks, bye.